In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to paint a autumn style wreath. I know we did one that was floral a couple weeks ago, but this one is going to be more like we're going to paint mushrooms and acorns and all different kind of fall stuff. So you're going to need to find something that's circular, and I just grabbed a lid and grab a pencil and just make a circle. Don't worry if these edges are a little close to the paper, to the edges of the paper, because we're not doing a super thick wreath. These are going to be thinner areas, so we don't have to worry about that. Now let's get started with kind of sketching out our wreath. Typically I don't sketch out too much when I'm doing loose style, but this one we have a lot going on, so we want to make it a little more like structured. So this area right here, I'm going to make just these little twigs, and I'm sorry if you can't see that. I know that the pencil is really light. I want to keep it light because I don't want it to show up under the watercolor, but these are just those two areas that are going to be a little thin, so I want to mark those. I'm just doing kind of thin slivers for the leaves. And I want to add acorns. So acorns have that half moon shape on the top, and then they come down into a point. And I'll do two. And whenever you're drawing, if you overlap things, it makes them seem a lot more realistic. And we're not going for a total realistic style here, but it gives it a little more interest. And then maybe I'll make some of those over here. Again, it's a half moon shape, and then a curve to a point and a curve to a point. And same thing, I'm going to overlap them. I'm just roughly sketching so that when I start painting, I have a really good kind of base of where everything is going, since there's a lot more going on in this one. And then I want to do some mushrooms. I know it's kind of random, but it's not like everything's growing together. We're just kind of putting a bunch of things together. So the mushrooms have that half moon shape on the top, and then they have kind of like this circle, long circle. And again, we want to make them overlap a little bit, some small, some tall. Maybe I'll do some smaller ones over here. This is just a fun little tutorial. Don't worry if it doesn't turn out perfect. Every time you practice is an opportunity to get better at your craft, and it's also fun and relaxing. It is to me, at least. I want to put a pumpkin right here. Drawing a circle. I'm going to make a little stem come out. And then with the pumpkin, there's these half moon shapes that are the ridges in the pumpkin. Just do that all the way around. And maybe we do a little one up here. So you guys can do this any way you want. You don't have to do the exact same thing that I do. I'm gonna speed up the video and fill in things a little bit more. Oh, one other thing I'm gonna add is some berries. So berries are just circular circles connected to little twigs. Okay, now I'm gonna speed it up. Now we're going to write something in the middle here. You can write whatever you want, but I'm going to write be thankful. That's way too far the other way. I'm going to change it to joyful. And I'm doing calligraphy here, but you can write however you'd like. Okay, now we start painting. Now that we have everything sketched out, we are going to use a number 4 and a number 6 paintbrush. I have both of my water cups, and I do 2 because one I keep cool tones in and one I keep more warm tones like oranges and reds. If they get combined, a lot of times you'll get kind of murky paint. So the first thing I'm going to do is mix up my colors. I definitely want to have a red, orangey kind of color here. So I'm going to add, this is a bunch of different paint I had in here already, but I'm going to add more yellow to make it more orangey. And I like to add the yellow ochre because it gives it a brown a little bit. And I can darken or lighten this as I go, but for right now, I'm pretty happy with that. And then I definitely want to have a brown. We're dealing more with fall, autumn colors here, so we want to keep the color palette warm and like an autumn color palette. So I already had this in my palette and it looks pretty good. It's kind of more of a golden brown, so I am going to make a darker color brown over here. Have some burnt umber paint color. And I hope you guys are mixing up your paint colors as well right now and not just watching me do this, because I'm sure it's kind of boring if you are. I'm gonna grab a little black because it'll darken this. And you could even add a Payne's gray, which is more like blue in my opinion, but it will also give it a more burnt color. Okay, so we have that dark color. We also have those acorns, so those 2 colors of brown will come in handy. And then of course we need a green, and I'm gonna get the green. I'm gonna have 2 kind of shades of green. So one is gonna be a little bit darker. I'm going to add, I believe this is Payne's gray right here. So it just gives it a little more darkness. And then we'll have a lighter one over here, but it's not going to be bright, bright green, because bright green leaves are for spring and summer. And we want to mute it down a little bit. So we're going to add some, this is turquoise over here, to kind of give it a sagey color. And then we want to mute it, and you can mute it 2 ways. You can add black to it, or you can add its opposing color. So the opposing color to green is red, and I'm gonna add red because it's gonna just take it down a notch so it's a little more muted. This is actually a little too murky for me, so I'm gonna add in that blue again because I want that sage-like color. Perfect. All right, we're ready to paint. And I don't recommend doing what I did here where I put my palette on top of the paper because now it's a mess. But I do that so that you guys can see what I'm doing because my camera, I don't have a super fancy camera set up. All right, let's get started. You can start anywhere you'd like. I'm gonna grab my size 4 brush and I'm going to grab some of that kind of golden brown. I'm gonna make little lines right here. And that is where we had kind of the connection piece. And I'm going to make that come through in a few different spots. And we can go back later and fix this up, but these berries are gonna need the brown too, so I'm gonna do those. Sometimes if I have a painting already completely drawn out, I don't need to do one chunk at once. If I know I'm gonna use this brown everywhere, I'll just go ahead and put the brown everywhere. Some right here. Then we have these fall leaves. Okay. Now we can go in with the acorns, and acorns typically, if I'm remembering them correctly, because I'm not looking at anything, the top is darker and the bottom is lighter. And we don't really want this piece to be super loose, so I am going to let these dry before I paint the bottom half. And you can always add a little variation. Maybe this one has a little more of that golden brown in it. Remember, if your paintbrush seems like it has way too much water on it, don't be afraid to just dab it on a paper towel or a microfiber cloth so that you're not getting big puddles of water. I'm gonna go around and do all the tops of the acorns right now. And I'm just outlining it, rinsing off my brush. I have only water on my brush, and I come back in here and kind of mix it up. So outline, rinse my brush off, make sure I don't have too much water, just paint it. Notice how I varied the colors a little bit here. If you feel like you want to make it a little bit darker, you can come in and poke in some color. Okay, got those. And for my mushrooms, I kind of like having them be a little bit reddish brown, the tops of them. So I grab that color and same thing. And we're gonna add little dots to these at the end, but right now we're gonna just paint the top. And you don't have to make both of the mushrooms the same color. You can make one a different color. I kind of really like that they're this rusty color. So I'm gonna do two the same, but just a slightly different shade, so they're not too boring. I just added in a little of that golden brown to make this a little lighter in color. All right, we have our cute little mushroom tops. And for the berries, we're gonna do red as well. And just outlining it. Remember to vary it a little bit. You don't want them all to just be bright red. So just rinse them off. And these ones, you don't have to outline them and then draw and then rinse your brush, and because they're so small, you can just fill them in if you want to. But you can also poke in some color if you want to add more variation. Sometimes I like to outline them because I feel like I get more depth. See how the middle is kind of, there's really not that much paint. Where is everybody watching from today? I'm always curious how far across the world my YouTube videos travel. It's so amazing, right? That we have this thing called the internet and people from so far from you can be watching your videos. I am in San Diego, California, in the United States. We got lots of these berries. I don't know why, I just love berries. Sometimes if you're feeling lazy, you can just outline them all at once, rinse off your brush, and then just come in here and poke the color around. I just love painting wreaths. I think you can do so much with them, and you don't, I mean, there's just so many different things you can do. But you always have that guideline of a circle. And these guys, I'm just gonna poke a little extra paint in. Okay, Now we can go back to our acorns and paint the bottom. The bottom, we want to have a really, really light, I'm going to show you. I'm using this right here. It was part of this color, but I just put a lot of water into it because the bottom of the acorn is typically pretty light. And we want to make sure it stays light. And don't worry about having too varying of shades. I'm just coloring it in. I'm just painting, filling it in. Oh my gosh, dog hair always. Okay, there's a piece of dog hair on there. You are able to see the pencil outline a little bit, which kind of bothers me. If you want to avoid that, I highly recommend before you start your painting to take an eraser and just lightly erase the pencil marks. So you're still able to see it, but it's not super, super heavy so that you can eventually paint over it. For the pumpkin, I'm gonna do a wash just over the entire thing and then come back and do those details. And I'm still using my size 4 brush, but of course that can vary. If you guys made yours, this is a 9 by 12 inch piece of paper. If you guys made yours a lot bigger, you can definitely use a size 6 brush or even a size 8 or a size 10 if you feel like you need it. I like the 4 because I'm able to get smaller details, but for something like this, this pumpkin, I could have definitely switched to my 6. Now we can paint the little bottoms of our mushrooms. I'm gonna say almost similar to the acorn color, the bottom of the acorn. Just come in here. I am going to rinse my brush. And if you want, you can grab a little bit of a darker color and just lightly tap so it looks like there's a shadow. Simple things like that with watercolor really make a difference. I think I say that in almost every one of my videos, but tiny little details make your painting amazing. Put those tiny details here. And then our mushrooms are pretty dry on the top. So I'm gonna go back and grab that dark brown. I'm just gonna put some little dots. My sister lives kind of in the wilderness, like farm country in California. And they forage, her and my brother forage for mushrooms all the time. And it scares me so bad because you could so easily get one that you're not supposed to eat, but they do a pretty good job of finding the right ones. I just grabbed some of that orange color and I mixed it with a little bit of brown for these leaves. These are kind of like, oops, that was way too dark. Maple leaf in a way. And I am going to just paint this outright. So I'm just outlining it and painting it because I'm going to come in and just punch in some of that brown color. Ooh, the sun is coming through my window very strong. I hope you guys are getting good light in this video. Don't worry, I'll check before I publish it. So you want there to be some water because we are going to punch in a little bit of color. I'm gonna grab a little more rust color. Just kind of go like this. I'm just tapping the tip of my paintbrush. And we need this to be wet still so we get the color to kind of bleed and explode into the leaf. I have one of those over here. In Southern California, we don't get a ton of different weather. You definitely know when it's fall. It feels, well, not until like November do you know it's fall because it stays pretty hot. But you definitely know it's fall because it gets a lot drier. But it's just different. There's so many beautiful places in the world where the leaves change. It's just a whole beautiful new season. We don't get a lot of that here, but we also get a lot of sun, and we're very lucky for that. Did I only do, oh, there's one more down here. I'm going to grab that orange, and again, I'm just outlining my leaf. So it kind of has that, almost like a holly berry leaf. So it has those pointy edges, but you're making it five leaves, or 4 and one's hidden or whatever, but people will know because it's orange. They know it's like a maple leaf or an oak tree leaf, whatever it is. And then we're making sure to keep this wet, and we come over, we grab some of that kind of burnt orange, and we're just tapping in the color. If you look at a leaf that has turned, you'll always see varying shades of browns and oranges in it. And now it looks like we're ready for the green. So for the green, I'm gonna grab my size 6 brush, and I'm gonna come over here, and I'm gonna start with that kind of sagey color green and do some of these bigger leaves. And I'm just filling them in because I'm going to come in and add little details to them later. So I'm not overly concerned that there's a lot of interesting like shading going on right now, because I'm going to add details with paint and a smaller brush. You can vary the hue, so you don't want all these leaves to be the exact same hue. So maybe you add a little more yellow or a little more blue. This one's a lot darker. This one's lighter. Almost looks a little bit like a Christmas wreath with the red. If you don't like that look, then you can make them orange. You can make yellow, might have been a good decision. Now I'm coming in and I'm making those tiny leaves. Now these tiny leaves, I'm not going to add more detail to, so I do want to make sure there's some variation in them. So some are light, some are darker. Shh, Benny, quiet. That's our guard dog. Shh. And these are smaller leaves, and I like to keep them darker. And if you feel like it's getting boring, feel free to poke in some different colors. Not different colors, like a darker shade. Sometimes towards the end of a painting, I start getting really lazy. And I encourage you that if you feel like that, take a break, because it's like a race almost. You have to have the endurance to keep going. But if you find that you're just kind of being like, oh, I don't care where this stroke is or whatever, you're going to affect your overall painting. It's not going to be as good as it could be. So take a break. It's totally fine. I honestly am starting to feel like that right now. I'm not going to take a break because I'm doing this tutorial, but I know that feeling too well, and it happens to me a lot, and I paint all the time, and I have people pay me to do paintings for them. But obviously I'm lucky I get to take a break if I need it, and I highly recommend that if you're starting to get that like, lazy feeling that you don't care what it looks like or you just want to hurry up and paint it. So again, I am making sure that some of these are dark and some of them are light. And we have some details to fill in. We're definitely going to do that. I guess I could take a break because you guys don't see this video until it's finished. It's not like it's live. I'm so funny. Okay. And if you feel that anything needs a little like fluffing or needs more stuff around it, feel free to just add in whatever you want. Sometimes I just do these little light brush strokes, but if you add it in one place, you gotta add it kind of all over so that it feels full. Now let's add in the details for the little pumpkins. We're gonna have a brown stem. I'm gonna outline, and then I'm going to fill it in with water. Same thing up here. Rinse, and paint. And we need a darker orange. I'm gonna mix some of that dark orange with that kind of golden brown. And if you need to go smaller to a size 2 brush or a size 1, so we're going in where the pumpkin is. And I have my size 4 brush, but you can use a smaller size if you feel like you need it. And I'm just making lines. I'm okay with it just being lines. If you really want to add some depth, you can go in and you would do this one at a time, but fill this in. So I'm just taking water. So my brush is totally clean, but this paint, it's actually not that wet. That one's wet, okay. And it's moving the paint. So it's a little more interesting that way. There's so many different styles for watercolor painting. I am going to use that method again here. So it's interesting. Here we go. Now, oh, I want to make some leaves right here. And that is a pretty dark color. So I want to add it over here too, because otherwise it's going to look a little unbalanced if all of a sudden I just have the dark color right there. That's the important thing with wreaths. You want to make sure that you have an overall balance of the colors and everything you use. Now I'm going to go in, I'm actually going to grab my size 2 paintbrush to make smaller details. I'm grabbing a dark brown color and I'm making the veins of this maple or oak leaf, whatever it is. If you know what kind of leaf this is, please let me know. And just do light lines. Don't do all the same color, so rinse off some of your pigment so it looks a little different. So you might do really dark up here and then rinse your pigment and just do lighter over here. Or you could just do the veins on one side and not really do them on the other. For these acorns, I'm going to do a little cross hatch kind of pattern on the top. Make sure you don't have too much water on your brush. Just lightly drawing these lines like this and then coming over the other side. And you can alternate it on the other one so it doesn't look exactly the same. So line, 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 kind of like tic-tac-toe. You can put some lines in the pumpkin stem. And if you want to add some little sticks in here, you can do that as well. All right, the last and final piece is just to paint the artwork in the middle. I am going to use a black color, and I'm doing brush calligraphy, so it's kind of like cursive, and I am just painting over this. Feel free to use a pen if you want. I'm just using my brush, and I like to thicken the downstrokes because it's calligraphy. I'm not worried that it's going to look perfect. I kind of want it to look messy. Feel free to use a marker, or you can use a pen if you feel more comfortable. You don't have to do calligraphy. I do have a faux calligraphy course, so this would be considered faux calligraphy because you're not using a dip pen, which has this metal piece. It's basically you dip it in ink. But if you're interested in learning faux calligraphy, I'll link it in the little notes section of this. And I think it's like $9 on Etsy, and you can buy the packet, and then I do a short YouTube tutorial teaching you how to do it. So if you want to be able to write like this, that class will teach you that. And don't worry if you didn't get the pencil line. Once this dries, you can come in here and you can erase the pencil line. The only time you can't erase the pencil line is if you already painted over it. So for example, these guys, I'm not gonna be able to erase that pencil line, but that's okay. All right, and we're all finished. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial and that you can use this beautiful wreath as decor or a card for a friend.